while I'm cooking my lunch, I thought I'd just talk a little bit about the Lord of the Rings. So before anyone groans, and I'm not going to start talking about elfish and gnomes and whatever. Finally got round to watching Lord of the Rings with my kids, and we finished it off this weekend. So obviously they're really long films, but they're at an age where you can actually sit through a long film. And my littlest, who's 11, he manages to stay awake if he's scared. So Lord of the Rings was scary enough to keep him awake. So obviously, Lord of the Rings was written a long time ago. I think it was written like in the 50s, maybe 1950s. So we're coming up to 70 years now. So it's a long time ago, and the fact that it's still happening, obviously means that it still grabs people's attentions. Like the themes in it and things. Anyway, so I watched it with my kids, and there's Tolkien fought in the First World War, and people say that that's why he wrote Lord of the Rings. His experiences in the First World War, like his experience of like actual battle, and being told like that there's a foe, and there's evil, and that motivated him, or like brought up, gave him a different perspective on like the old archetypal tales that we that exist in our culture. So one of the things that people don't tend to know about Tolkien is that he was he defined himself as an anarchist, and that was because he saw what states, governments lead to. So he saw in his perspective the First World War didn't actually have anything to do with the people, who lived in, Germany, Austria, Serbia, England. It was just so abstract to them. Like so many people died, and it was just like such a horrific thing to have had to live through. And so his concept of like the One Ring, he was talking about something like the whole point of it. Like it wasn't that. Well, there's lots of levels to it. So the One Ring is like a power that's just too terrible to have, and that's why everyone that it touched was corrupted. Even the people with the best of intentions. And in fact, the wisest of them were the ones that knew that they couldn't use it, that they just wouldn't be able to resist it. So that's like, Gandalf was aware of that, Galadriel was aware of that, and no one else, the men, there was very few men who was aware that they wouldn't be able to control it. And so the point of it is that some things exist and they're just too terrible. And that was basically what his idea of, it was basically reflecting government, the state, the idea that it's like just this one power that controls everything. And I think the concept of, when people say, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I mean, you don't have to look very far to just see how these things happen in modern states. I mean, even everyone who starts with the best of intentions just ends up falling under the spell of this power, because it's all compulsion. Well, the fact that you can actually force people to do things, and in some sense, well, in every sense, they think that they're completely right and completely justified. I mean, that's one of the things that people just don't realise, the consequence of when you go and you vote, what you're actually saying is, this is what I want, and I think that everyone should be forced to do what I want as well. Because what else does it mean? Because if it wasn't that, then it'd be voluntary to, there wouldn't be rules and, there would be rules, but you wouldn't have laws that say, if you don't do exactly this, then you go to prison. And that's what it's all about. Ultimately, if you pass a law, you might say, with that law only goes a fine. It's not like you go to prison. It's like, yeah, but if you don't pay the fine, you eventually go to prison. If you just say, this isn't a just law, I won't do it, I don't believe in it, it's not right. You're not even allowed to object on grounds of conscience. So, when you think about that, the whole point is that people actually don't think about it. It's not like these things aren't just all goodwill and voluntary association. There are consequences to going to vote. I mean, that's why I don't vote, because it's a moral thing for me. Because I don't have the right to force any of you guys to live the way I want. But also, conversely, you don't have the right to make me live the way you want. So, it's fine. We can just all, get along. But we're sort of so indoctrinated. I mean, indoctrination's a kind of it's a word that triggers a lot of people. So it's like, we're all indoctrinated. I mean, everything that we know and that we believe, and all our beliefs and everything, in some sense, comes from indoctrination. I mean, it must do. That's how cultures survive, because one generation indoctrinates the other generation into those beliefs. I suppose means in terms of my anarchism, I suppose in modern parlance we'd say that I was self-radicalized, because believe it or not, nobody that I actually know is an anarchist. It's just one of those things that I can't even, with most people I can't even bring up the subject, so I just don't. But, everyone just wants to pick sides in who gets to wield the one ring. And also what's kind of crazy about it is people have such bad short-term memories. Well, not short-term, I mean, I just have bad memories. Because it's like, when an election is held, and a particular side wins, the people of that side are so happy and rejoicing as if they just won an absolute definite victory for the rest of time. You see them we have defeated the foe, and hey, everything will be great. When Trump got kicked out and Biden got in, the adults are back in the room, hooray. It's you do realise it's 4 years, right? At best 8 years. And then someone else is just going to come in. You do realise that, right? and anything that any law that you pass can just get overturned, later on. So, I don't know why people are so, naive about these things. But it's like, I find it very frustrating that people can't even go as far as to think, well, where does this power come from? This supposed power that we have? And it's like, well, it's the consent of the governed. It's like, okay, so if I don't consent, what does that mean? How can I not consent? How can I withdraw my perceived consent? What do I have to do? And that's the thing, is you can't. There's nothing to do. I'm not allowed. It's like, so this only works because everyone consents. But you can't actually not consent. You can't withdraw your consent. You can't actually do anything to say, excuse me, I don't agree with this. Can we do something else? And it's like, no, because there's a majority, so you shut up. We've got the majority and you've got to do what we say. And say, well, hold on. Since when is, just because it's the majority, why is that right? I mean, I get it, it's expedient. It means you can actually get things done. But, is that the ultimate, is that the highest cause of human endeavour to, what can we get done? It's like, well, why is it, what kind of benchmark is that for society? It's like, well, they were absolutely horrific, but they got things done. You know what I mean? Look at China now. I mean, China is a communist state. And then you can say, oh, well, it's not real communism, blah, 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 because it's capitalist and da, da, da. But, I think everyone can agree that, people that aren't what we'd call free. I mean, it's debatable to what extent we're actually free. So, what do we do? What makes us free? I mean, the idea is, if the only thing that you link to freedom is the fact that you can vote, then, that's not very good, is it? Even in places, even in communist countries, they do have elections for local officials and things like that. Does that make them completely free? But at the same time, I live in Spain and I can vote for things, but I can't have a rabbit, I can't have a budgie, because that's against the law. It's like, so that doesn't seem very free, does it? And so why am I free if I can't choose if I want to keep an animal? You might say, well, that's crazy, what if you wanted a tiger? That could kill people. And it's like, well, yeah, it could, but if you look at somewhere like Texas, there's more tigers in captivity in Texas than there are wild in the rest of the world. And you don't see, people aren't getting mauled by tigers every day. It seems like, freedom is all about the ability to do something stupid when it comes down to it, I suppose. But do we actually have the right to not allow people to do stupid things? I mean, that's the idea of when people talk about the nanny state. It's like, the state's protecting you from yourself. I'd say, well, is that what the state should be for? To protect us from ourselves? But ultimately, who's to say? At what point? When will it become illegal to do martial arts, for instance? Because they are dangerous and they do teach people how to hurt other people. And if you think about it, if you're being all like nice and good. You know, surely we shouldn't be teaching people how to hurt each other. You know, that's the whole reason why you're not allowed to have guns, isn't it? Because I mean, you could go and kill someone. It's like, well, yeah, but you know, how soon are we going to have, you know, rounded knives? Because you know, obviously. So I'm a big believer in like principles, and what I mean by principles is like the thing that goes at the beginning of your thinking. You know, that's the principle idea. And the whole reason I actually got to anarchism in the first place was just by pulling at this like thread of, you know, well, if I belong to me, then what does that mean? You know, why can I belong to me and be part of society? You know, so like you're pulling on that. It's like, well, what does that imply? Do I have a right to tell other people what to do if they belong to themselves? You know, and I'll pull on that a little bit more. And eventually, you get to the point where, at least I got to the point, where I think that the ideal society would be when we just all, you know, if self-ownership was really allowed to flourish, and also the full consequence of it, you know, it's I don't believe that there should be a welfare state, but I also don't believe that people would allow other people to starve to death or not have medical care. You know, I believe that I'd happily contribute to help people who, you know, are going through a rough patch get back on their feet. But that doesn't mean that we should set up a mechanism for people to not have a job in the whole of their lives. So when I was a student, I used to work at the dole office, like in the summer. And there were people, and I used to sign the people on, so they'd come on. The way it used to work, I don't know if it still works like this, but basically if you didn't have a job, every 2 weeks you'd have to go in and say, no, I haven't been able to work, I haven't found a job, and you'd sign on, and then you'd get money. And there were people who I'd like be signing on, who went into a different category of long-term unemployed. And so there were people there who were older than me, who were like in the 30s, 40s, 50s, who'd never, ever had a job, ever. Just, they hadn't worked. And so what were they doing? They were basically, you know, don't get me wrong, they weren't living the life of Riley in the sense of, you know, a big house and loads of money and all stuff like this, but they did have the house paid for, they had enough to live on, and they were, you know, they had kids and stuff like that as well. And it's just, you know, the state was just entirely providing for them. So, I mean, what is their motivation to actually do anything? I mean, why would you? You know, if you've like grown up in the environment where everyone around you is just living like that, of course, that's just what you're going to, why would you work? To do what? I mean, these people weren't particularly bright or anything. You know, I get the idea, I get the feeling that anyone who actually aspired to more and was able to do it because like they were, you know, clever, then they'd do it. But these are people who are just quite, you know, had no ambition, no expectations for life, and they were just quite happy to, you know, have enough to go out, you know, go to the pub occasionally, or maybe buy tinnies in and have a bet, and you know, that was it. That was their life. And I'm not even saying that everyone should aspire to what, you know, it's not up to me to make people want to do stuff. But the thing is, if you weren't just being paid to live like that, then it wouldn't even be an option to just live like that. You couldn't. So, you know, I'm not saying that everyone should be a wage slave, far from it. But I am saying that everyone should at least feel that they have the responsibility to at least provide for themselves. And that's just not the case at the moment. And it's never going to be the case while we have a system that's basically paying for people to vote in a certain way. I mean, that's what even Karl Marx. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not exactly a communist. Karl Marx said that democracy would bankrupt itself because it's just paying for people's votes. And maybe that's the only thing that I agree with on, agree with Karl Marx on. I mean, it doesn't seem to be bankrupting itself right now because with central banks you can just print as much money as you want and just wait until we don't have cash and there's no accountability for like the physical currency, then the money printing will just be infinite. So anyway, Lord of the Rings is basically J.R. Tolkien. I think he just had it right. It's just the state leads to such corruption that it's just too powerful a thing to actually, put in anyone's hands. Because what it leads to is like where we are now. And people are just so indoctrinated, they can't even take a step back. It's like, statism is literally a religion. It's got all the ceremonies and it's got, all people dress up to do things like the policeman, the judge, the whole thing. It's just this huge, like, religious ceremony that everyone, like, you don't even have to be. I mean, your baptism, at least here in Spain, is like as soon as you're born, you're registered and signed up. You're like, it's like cattle. And that's kind of, it's more than depressing, to be honest. Anyway, I think my lunch is pretty much done. I've had enough talking about the state because I think I've depressed myself. So for anyone still watching at this point, well done, thank you very much. I know some people actually do watch to the end, which is incredible. And if anyone wants to leave a comment, that'd be great. I'm not even going to ask for likes, just leave a comment, tell me if you like it. If you don't like it, tell me to shut up. If you want me to talk about something else, just let me know. It'd be nice. And yeah, so as is traditional, I will spoon out my lunch, which is largely the same as it is every day. I'm starving. So have a good day. Talk to you soon, whatever, and see you around.